Hey there, I'm Chuck Whitehead and welcome to beautiful Portland, Oregon, home of Daimler Trucks North America and the exclusive production site for Western Star Trucks. Here at the Portland Truck Plant, we employ over 700 people, fully dedicated to carefully crafting the high-quality, amazingly rugged and durable trucks Western Star is world famous for. For over 40 years, this plant has hand-built, premium quality, custom trucks for our customers throughout the entire United States, Canada, and the rest of the world. Our engineers and technicians rely on the latest manufacturing techniques to produce premium, heavy-duty, custom-built Western Star trucks for freight transport, heavy vocational applications, and extreme duty off-road work. Let's take a tour of our manufacturing facility so that you can see up close the premium features and hand-built details that sets each and every Western Star truck apart from our competition and also makes them worth each and every penny you pay for them. Our Portland Truck Plant. So let's start with the chassis, engine, and axle build-up area, because that's where it all begins. Western Star trucks are built to last, no matter how hard the job. And nowhere is that more apparent than on the Portland Truck Plant's 1,200-foot-long chassis assembly line. It runs the length of the entire... Here you can see all the frame rails lined up outside per serial number, ready to come in for assembly. You can tell by all the different lengths and thicknesses how many different trucks we can build here in one day. You can see here behind me, they're assembling the frames by sticking them inside a jig, placing the cross members inside, and then the hydraulic cylinders will fold up that frame into the cross members. One of the big questions we get all the time with Western Star is, why don't you use a huck fastener? Well, if you look at this, it's a very simple piece and it's got only two pieces to it. You also can't hook onto it with a wrench. The only way to install these is with a special tool. So when you're in the field, how are you going to hook onto this with a wrench? You can't. So at Western Star, what we use is a grade 8 fine threaded cap screw, 2 hardened washers, and a steel lock nut. As you can see, it's easy to get on here with a wrench. It's easy to get on here with a wrench. You can undo it from either end. That's 4 pieces versus 2. It's going to take a little bit longer to install, but it's going to give you value in the field because you can undo it and you can replace it. For our tractors, what we do is we taper our frame rail by cutting out a piece and then re-welding it so that it's seamless. Then we recess these fasteners inside the flange of the rail. What that does is it gives a seamless ramp for the trailer to glide up on. Our competitors use fasteners where the heads are sitting up, and when you ramp into a trailer with that, bam, 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 causing damage to the front of the trailer. At Western Star, we locate the front cab mount outboard as far as we possibly can on the cab in order to give a much more stable ride. Our competitors put the cab mount inboard, requiring them to have a transverse torque rod on the back of the cab. Our cab mount is out so far that the cab will not tilt side to side. It gives a much better ride. The further in you put the cab mount towards the rails on the truck, the tippier the cab actually gets. So inside here in this casting is a little pin, and that pin locates inside a hole in this pipe. When it's torqued down, this cab mount structure actually becomes another cross member holding the frame rails together and reducing flex at the power unit. Here's how Western Star holds up their looms and harnesses on all rails on all models of trucks. We take this steel standoff that is threaded on the end and we weld it onto the frame or onto the cross member of the chassis. Then we use a rubber-coated, steel, zinc-coated P-clamp and use a steel lock nut on the outside. The Western Star system holds the harness away from the frame by a large amount. So what happens is when you get road salt and dirt all piling up on top of the harness, it just falls away and down. These are still going to be on your truck 30 years from now, and you can take this nut off and you can undo the clamp, you can work on the harness, and you can put it all back on. This is the beginning of the Western Star axle line. You can see the rear axles lined up, ready to go in to get their suspension brackets welded. The last thing to be installed on the axles are the drive lines. Every time you order a truck with a different wheelbase or a different model, you're going to have different drive lines on it. So these are as individual as the frame rails are. Now assembled, it's time for the custom chassis to be prepared for painting. After a trip through the paint booth, the chassis goes through ovens where the paint is cured at up to 200 degrees Fahrenheit or 90 degrees Celsius. Now that's hot. After a cool down period, technicians get to work on hanging the engine package and making the necessary connections before installing the fuel tanks and batteries. One of the great things at Western Star is engine options. We have our own proprietary series of engines, 16 liter, 15 liter, and 13 liter from Detroit Diesel. We're here in the cooling module assembly area. This is where we assemble radiators, charge air coolers, power steering coolers as one module. We are the last OEM to build a copper brass radiator for engine cooling. We had an 1,875 square inch copper brass radiator with 500 horsepower engine running constantly at 104 degrees ambient temperature with the hood closed, constant. No other OEM can perform like that. We are the king of cooling. At Western Star, we mount our fuel tanks on steel J-brackets. The steel J-bracket holds the tank up in the air. The strap does not hold the tank up. Then what we do at Western Star is we use a wide steel strap in order to hold the tank onto the J-bracket. Now, the problem a lot of our competitors have is called tank roll. And what happens with tank roll is the tank will roll inside the band, so the filler neck comes lower and lower to the road. Or worse yet, it rolls onto the other side and you can't stick a nozzle in it. And here is a sample of a competitor's fuel tank isolator. This is the rubber that goes in between the tank and the strap. As you notice, ours is much wider than theirs. So we use a wider strap for greater strength, and then to increase the PSI on the tank to prevent it from rolling, we use a serrated isolator in here. You can see all the little slits that are... Meanwhile, on the other side of our Portland truck plant, the durable Western Star all-steel cab is being fabricated from amazingly tough and resilient high-grade galvannealed steel. Top-notch technicians and state-of-the-art robots cut and weld together what will ultimately become the industry's strongest and safest cab. This is the very beginning of the cab manufacturing process. Behind me is what's known as a peg-up jig. What they're doing is they are assembling by hand the very base of the cab, the floor. It is assembled by hand to ensure that every single part is in exactly the right place. From there, we add the firewall, sidewalls, back wall, and finally the roof. After these peg up, that's where you're going to see some of the only robots in the Western Star plant. And the reason that we're using robots to place those spot welds is that every spot weld will be put in exactly the same place every time. Each one of those locations for that spot weld is dictated by a cab engineer. So if there's a certain strength point that is required in that location, that's where it goes. And that's what gives us the strongest, most durable cab in the market. Behind me is a finished Western Star cab structure. This is what it looks like after it's finished the complete hand and robotic weld process. Western Star uses a super strong galvannealed steel cab. Most folk ask us, what is galvannealing? Well, galvannealing is very similar to galvanizing. galvanizing and galvannealing both have steel dipped in 100% molten zinc as a hot coating. Now galvanizing, it's just dipped and then it dries. So if you take a 3-inch doornail that's galvanized and you bend it, you'll see all that galvanizing flake off. What galvannealing is the steel is dipped in the 100% pure zinc, then it's attacked by air knives to get the excess off, and then it's baked at 1,000 degrees. Now what occurs at that baking or annealing process is that the layer of zinc actually bonds into the steel. So you have a coating of 10% steel and 90% zinc. Now that you've got the metal transfer, you've got excellent paintability, you've got excellent spot weldability, and you can stamp it, and you can bend it, and it doesn't flake off. Western Star cab manufacturing process includes installing structural adhesive between all overlapping joints. Structural adhesive is very similar to JB Weld. Once it dries, in order to get it off, you have to take a grinder to it. It's that strong. Then, of course, as you saw before, we spot weld over top of that, a very, very strong structure. Now that the cab is completely welded up and it has the structural adhesive, it's ready for its next journey. It's going to go through a 17-step e-coat process. Each tank has a different cleaner or chemical agent compound in it that when it's finished, every nook and cranny inside and out will be completely sealed and primed. After it is sealed and primed in the e-coat process, any exterior overlapping joint is going to be hand caulked with aluminized wax, which is a chemically inert material, and also when it dries, you're going to have to take a grinder to it in order to get it off. So we have galvannealing, we have structural adhesive, we have aluminized wax, and a double wall construction. We have the strongest cab in the market. In fact, recently we had to do a European crash test on our cab, and the roof supported over 22,000 pounds. For occupant safety, it's the best in the business. After careful assembly and meticulous inspection, every single cab is properly prepped for its premium custom paint job. Here at the Portland Truck Plant, each and every Western Star truck gets a high-quality top coat of PPG paint. Our customers choose from thousands of color options to create the images and designs they want. Behind me you can see the finished cab inspection area. At Western Star we use the highest quality paint from PPG. So once it's painted, it comes out into this area, it's been dried, and it gets visually inspected on every square inch for any defect in the paint. Our e-coat process is also chemically designed to work with the PPG paint. So what you'll see on a Western Star when it's finished is a very high gloss, high quality finish, and it stands out much better from all the other trucks. And a lot of people will ask us, why are Western Stars so shiny? That's because of our e-coat process and the paint that we apply here in the plant. As soon as it's done going through its inspection process, we stuff every available nook and cranny with this insulation. It gives really good acoustic and thermal insulation, which means you get better insulation from heat and cold, and it's a very, very quiet ride. Does this cost more money? Yes, it does, but if you're driving that truck all day long on the road, you're going to notice a difference. Now that the cab and chassis have been built to the customer's exact specifications, it's time to finish the job. Technicians connect the cab and chassis, all the fluids are added, the tires and wheels are installed, then the vehicle is actually started for the first time on the moving assembly line and driven to the final assembly area, where it will receive a complete precision laser alignment, full dynamometer check, and a computerized ABS brake check. Once it's finished its final inspection, it's sent to the transporter for delivery to the dealer, and from there, off to what it does best: work, serious work. On behalf of Western Star Trucks, I'd like to personally thank you for touring the Portland truck plant with me and checking out what goes into custom building a premium quality, rugged Western Star truck, and what makes that custom built truck well worth the extra investment. Western Star Trucks, serious trucks.